Hello, and welcome to Accounting 210 Legal Environment. My name is Michelle DeMary, and for the next 4 weeks we'll be working together to learn the materials covered in this course, Accounting 210. This video is intended to be kind of a first day of class video. I'll go over the syllabus and show you the Blackboard site and give you a little bit of familiarity with the class so that we can all start out on the same page. Okay? My contact information is here. I'm happy to respond to email and phone calls. I prefer not to text with students, so you may feel free to call or email and I'll respond to either of those. I like talking with students and I enjoy the engagement. I'm happy to do so. And I say that because you need to know that just because I don't have scheduled office hours, it does not mean I don't want to talk to you. But I've been teaching this class now for 5 or 6 different winter sessions, and it's been my experience that nobody ever shows up when I have scheduled office hours, but I meet with students lots of other times at their convenience. So rather than sitting at my computer and waiting for students to show up, I think it makes more sense to simply say, please contact me if you want to meet, and I'm happy to do so, to have asynchronous conversations by email, to have a special Zoom session, to have a phone call, any one of those that would be helpful to you. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you need anything throughout the next 4 weeks, okay? I will predominantly communicate with students via email, so it's important that you check your email regularly. Because this class goes so fast, I will try very hard to respond to any email requests from you within 12 hours, unless it's something that is urgent. And I would ask that you try to do the same. I'll say this several times throughout this video, but the 4 weeks of this class goes really fast. And so we don't want to fall behind on something as simple as getting a response to a question. See, here I say it again. We'll cover 14 weeks of material in 4 weeks, which goes really fast. So it's really important that you feel comfortable from the start, which is part of why I make the class live a little earlier, so you can become familiar with the Blackboard site, with the text, with MindCourse. MindTap, which is the online version of materials that we'll use for this class that I'll talk about in a moment. Especially in the first couple of days, please see that you can get logged on, use the material. If you have any trouble with technology, if it is trouble with Blackboard or with accessing Zoom, which we will use, you should contact Susquehanna's IT department directly, and the information is here. If it's trouble accessing MindTap, which is the application we will use that accompanies the textbook, then there's a phone number there. You can call them directly. There's also information about this on the Blackboard site, and they will be happy to walk you through. If you have tech problems, you can always contact me, but I'm just going to do exactly what this says here. I'm going to either contact Susquehanna's IT department or I'm going to contact Cengage, so it probably makes a whole lot more sense for you to go to them directly. You may copy me on any email so you can let me know you're having trouble, but they'll be able to respond to you much more quickly if you find you're having any challenges. The MindTap application is pretty easy to use. Once you log on for the first time, it is an almost seamless use of the application. I'll show you that in a moment. And I'm not nearly as tech savvy as most of you are, and I've learned to manipulate it pretty well over the last few years. So I think you'll have no difficulty. It is important that you remember that when you're using MindTap through Blackboard, you need to enable pop-ups. Otherwise, a lot of the materials will not work. Which means you probably shouldn't use, for instance, a library site or a library computer, because oftentimes you can't enable pop-ups on those. So you want to be careful about that, okay? This is information that I already emailed you, but our textbook is The Essentials of the Legal Environment. It's a 2016 version, which means there are a few things that have changed according in the law, and I will point those out to you. But by and large, much of the material that existed in 2016 is the same today. The definition of what makes for a tort was the same today as it was in 2016. So the few places where I've noted there are some changes, I'll point those out to you. But I found it to be a good book that covers lots of material in a way that I think is very accessible to students. So it's also the version, I believe, that is used by the legal environment classes that run during the semester. So there'll be some overlap there in the material you learn, as well as what is learned by students who take the course during the semester. Almost everything you will need for this class is found on Blackboard. So be sure you can access your Blackboard site. The only thing that won't be is that we will have a synchronous Zoom session once a week, and that will come to you via a Zoom invite that I will send to your inbox. Okay? So the course is intended to cover business law writ large. And by that I mean there's a lot of material that could be covered. I kind of get to pick and choose what I like because that's the beauty of being a professor. It is only a broad overview, and it should be applicable regardless of what role you think government should play in the business world. Some people think government should be doing more. Some people think government should stay out. But regardless of your personal view on those questions, the question how things operate today is probably important to understand. And that's what we're going to talk about in this class. The learning objectives, especially the ones here, are effectively what I hope you will understand by the end of the semester. By the end of our 4 weeks together. What is the structure of the U.S. government? What types of law and institutions are applied? And how are conflicts managed in the U.S.? We'll spend some time on the value of ethical decision making in business, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. The importance of regulatory agencies, and then there are 6 key concepts that we'll talk about: torts, criminal law, intellectual property, contracts, and employment law from a couple of different perspectives. There are more chapters than this in the text. There are actually 20 chapters, and I've chosen material partially because they're the ones I find most intriguing, but also because some of the other chapters cover material that you can access through other courses at Susquehanna. So for instance, you can take an environmental law course at Susquehanna. You can take an international law course at Susquehanna. So rather than covering those things, which you can get in a full course, I've chosen a variety of other options. This course also fulfills 2 elements of the central curriculum: the interdisciplinary perspective and the ethics intensive. And you will find, especially around the ethics intensive, that there are a variety of assignments that are focused specifically on that question. Whether or not decisions are legal is not always the same as whether or not they're ethical, and I think those are conversations worth having. Okay. This privacy statement should appear in any of the online courses that Susquehanna offers. We've been asked to put it in. It effectively says that you need to be really careful not to cheat. It might be a little bit easier in an online world than an in-person class. I'm assuming that Susquehanna students are going to be ethical and honest, and that you won't give your password to somebody else to take the exams for you, that you won't let somebody else write your papers, etc. So in short, this says, don't cheat, be honest. Okay. And the reason you really want to hear this video today is to find out what you need to do to get a grade in this class. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. Somewhat unusual for an online class, which is predominantly asynchronous, is that you will get some recognition for attendance and participation. I have already been in contact with you, and I'm trying to find a time that is available, at least 1, perhaps 2 times, when we can all get together. I'll probably have to break it up usually because of students' summer schedules. But at least once a week, you will meet with me and other class members, and we'll spend some time answering questions you may have, talking about assignments and the material you've covered, and probably, if we have time, I hope, discussing 1 or 2 of the hypotheticals that are raised in your text. I'll send you an email a day or 2 in advance of the meeting so you'll know what it is that I'll expect to talk about, and we can have conversations about that. I miss the real world of an in-person class, and so this is my way to capture that a little bit. And I think we get a lot more out of a class by having that kind of at least minimal conversation once a week. In order to encourage you, I will give you 5 points extra credit for every class you attend and participate in, which means you got to speak up at least once. And there is also a stick approach, where you will be allowed 1 absence, but there are 3 more classes, and for every one of those you miss, you'll be deducted 25 points. So if nothing else, that's probably a strong encouragement to be a part of the class and to participate. There's an element of the class that is not graded, but is probably worth your while. You will see that for each of the 12 chapters we cover, there are between 2 and 4 worksheets for each one. They're similar to the quizzes that will be graded, and they help you to see whether or not you've learned the material that has been covered. They will also help you to prepare for the quizzes and the exams that are graded. And it has been my experience that those students who take the time to do the worksheets, and they only take a few minutes, ultimately end up doing better on the quizzes and the exams than students who don't. It makes you more prepared. It helps to reinforce the material for you. So I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Now, for graded points that you will be awarded, there are, at the end of each of our 12 chapters, there will be what the textbook calls a hypothetical. I call them quizzes. That are a set of questions in which you are asked to apply the material you've learned in the text to a circumstance, to a set of circumstances, to an example. There will be 12 of those you will take. I will count the score on 10 of them. They're each worth 10 points. So you can either only do 10 of them, you can do all 12, and I'll take the 2 highest scores, whichever you prefer. It's important to note here and throughout the rest of the syllabus that those things for which you are given grades are due at 11 p.m. on Friday of the week they're due. So that for the first week, your deadline is July 9th at 11 p.m. That's when all the assignments for that week are due. You can do them early in the week, you can do them late in the week, but they have to be done by then. Right after that, you start week 2 and you can do the week 2 materials. But the Friday 11 p.m. deadline is a strict deadline. You're certainly welcome to work ahead, but do not fall behind, okay? The worksheets and the quizzes are also really helpful. Sorry, this is kind of a side note. Because a lot of the material that you're going to read is full of definitions and terms. And both the worksheets and the quizzes help to reinforce those so that you can apply them and have a deeper understanding of what they mean. So all of this, especially the quizzes while graded, are also important to contribute to your learning. At the end of each week, there will be an exam. The exams are cumulatively the material that you have learned from the 3 chapters of that week. There's no final, so that, for instance, the first week, the exam will cover those three chapters. The second week, the exam will cover those 3 chapters that we covered, 4, 5, and 6 that week. So there's no collective cumulative exam at the end. But by 11 o'clock on each Friday, you will need to complete the exam, which is worth 100 points. Now, a couple of differences that are important to note between the quizzes and the exams. For the quizzes, you have an unlimited amount of time and you get 2 times to take it, right? For the exams, it is time limited. There are 50 questions and you have 60 minutes. It has been my experience that is sufficient time for students to complete the exam. I have no students who seem to run into any difficulty with that. And you only get 1 chance at those, okay? So for the quizzes, they're untimed and you get 2 opportunities, and I will take the best, you automatically get assigned the highest of the 2 scores. For the exams, you only get 1 chance and it is a timed exam. However, for both of them, it is open book. You may use any of the materials that we've had for the class in order to help you answer the questions, okay? Now, that takes care of the kind of material that you'll access through Cengage, through MindTap. There are also some written assignments that I have for you that I've developed. 100 points will be assigned for your participation on the discussion board. There's been a discussion board established on Blackboard for each of the 4 weeks in hopes that we can get some sort of a conversation going on, even though it may be asynchronous, about current events and topics that are specifically related to the kinds of material we're talking about in this class. I have already posted 1 article for week 1 to give you a sense of what it is I'm thinking about, what I'm looking for. And there's a grading rubric that is associated with this that you can find on Blackboard, where I will expect you to post an article and discuss it and comment upon other people's postings. There's a lot happening in the real world, and it's really important to try and remember that what we're learning in this class really has real world applications, and I think you'll find that easily if you pay attention to any kind of a news source. Again, Friday at 11 p.m. is when I will stop counting points toward the discussion board on week 1, and the next day the discussion board for week 2 opens up, and you can begin posting on that one for that week's points, okay? Another 200 points will be allocated for video reaction papers, and these are papers that you will write in reaction to short, 3-minute videos, 3 to 5-minute videos that are accessible on the MindTap site that deal specifically with the chapters that we're covering. They're made by the publishing company. They're a little cheesy, but I think they actually raise some interesting questions, and most of them deal with some sort of an ethical quandary. They'll ask you to think about how the law applies, but also think about, more broadly, what do you think would be the right thing to do if you were the employer or the employee in that situation. And I will ask you to write a 1 to 2 page paper in response to that is clear, well written, all of those good things for a paper, but particularly that applies the material that you've learned in the text. So making reference back to the text will give you more points. Things that you've learned in the chapters we have read that you are applying as you react to the video and to the question that I've raised. This assignment, like all the others, has a much more complete description on Blackboard that I'll point out to you in a moment, okay? Another thing to note here that for all of these papers, for your video reaction paper, your applied business law assignment that we'll discuss in a moment, and your alumni interview, I would like them all done as Word documents, not pages, not PDFs, but Word documents, and attached as an attachment on the assignment link, okay? That makes it much easier for me to grade and give you feedback. And if there's anything that you probably learned so far, it's that you always want to keep your grader happy, right? So if you would do that, I would appreciate it. A second set of written assignments that you'll do, one each week, is an applied business law question. For the first week, I simply want you to write me a one-page paper that describes a business you would like to hypothetically own or manage. Describe to me what the business is, what it looks like, what it does, because for the next 3 weeks then, you will think as if you were managing or owning that business and how you would apply one of the concepts that we studied during that week. So that, for instance, the week we talk about contracts, you might want to think about your business and what kind of contractual relations your business will want to engage in. So that's again an attempt to apply what we're learning in the text to what does in fact go on in the real world. Last but not least, your final written assignment is one paper that will be due at the end of the 4-week session. I will, at the beginning of the second week of class, send you a list of alumni who are willing to participate in this project. Susquehanna has lots of great alums, and many of them are lawyers, are good lawyers. And they're often willing to share their time and talent by talking to present Susquehanna students. And a really good way of understanding how the law works in the real world is, in fact, to be able to talk to those people who practice law. So you will be expected to choose 2 of those alums. We'll negotiate this so that no alumni has to talk to more than one student. And interview them sometime probably in the 3rd week or early in the 4th week. About their jobs, about what they do, if there are any ways in which the material, the things that they do in their work connect to the material we talked about in class. And then you'll be expected to write a 3 to 4 page paper that gives me a summary of your interview, along with a list of the questions that you have developed to ask them. Excuse me. Again, that's due the last Friday of class, 11 o'clock p.m. on July 30th. And then here's the point scale for the assignments. It's the same as a 100-point scale. It's just that I don't like working in decimal, so it's on a 1,000-point scale. Now below are the list each week of what needs to be done. Okay, and let me go to week 3 because I think I can kind of fit that all on one page and it makes it clear for you. Here we go. Yep. It's got the dates at the top. It gives you a reminder again of when assignments are due. And it gives you other reminders. The discussion board, you need a posting, and you also need to do your applied business law assignment. Now the rest of these you'll find in a module on Blackboard, and I'll show you that in a moment. And more or less you'll want to do these things in order, right? You'll read chapter 7. I have done a video for each of our 4 weeks that takes one of the concepts that the text discusses and develops it in a little bit more detail. They're about 20 minutes each. You will have worksheets for each chapter. Those are the non-graded worksheets, but they can be helpful to reinforce your learning. There will be a video exercise like this. Sometimes there's more than one, but you only need to write a paper on one of them, where you will watch the video and answer the question. And then you'll have the graded quiz or the hypothetical. Chapter 8, worksheets, quiz. Chapter 12, worksheets, quiz, and the test. Right? Pretty straightforward. If it were me, I'm kind of old school, but I would print out the syllabus and I would keep it handy and just be able to check things off as they go along. You will find now I'm going to switch to the Blackboard site, which should look like this. This is the student version. And you will see there are different modules. There's a welcome one that I'll show you in a moment, and then there's one for each of the 4 weeks that follow almost exactly the same format. So in the welcome module, what you'll have is the syllabus, a little brief intro to me, some quick tips that are probably pretty important to read for getting started from making the most out of this class, this video posted there, information on technology, and a description of all 4 of the assignments so that you'll get much more detail and some discussion of how grades are allocated for each of those 4 assignments. Okay? Then each week has the material that we've just discussed. The discussion board where you can post, the video that I made on the primer on U.S. government, as well as the PowerPoint that accompanies that if you're interested. And then a link to chapter 1, a link to a case that is discussed in chapter 1 for those who might be interested, a link to each of the worksheets, a link to chapter 2, a link to each of the worksheets, chapter 3, each of the worksheets, the video, and your place to post your applied business law assignments, and the test for chapters 1 to 3. These will probably not appear. I'll have to clean these up. I think when I transferred something over from MindTap, it gave you the same material twice. Better than not giving you two at all, right? So if we click on where we have the links, you will see that it opens up. Here we go, Mind Tab. The first time you do this, you'll need to input the code that you were given when you purchased access to the textbook. Once you've done that once, then every other time you will be able to move immediately from the Blackboard site into the text. And you see here's the chapter of the text. If you X out of this, you will see it looks like here's each of the units we're going to cover. Chapter 1, for instance, you can read it. The worksheets are here. The brief hypothetical is here with your quiz. Again, Chapter 2, worksheets. The brief hypothetical, Chapter 3. Here's the video exercise with the question that accompanies it. Your worksheets, brief hypothetical, and your test for chapters 1 to 3. Okay? So that's a quick overview for what we're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks. I encourage you to be in touch with me if you have questions on any of this. I know it feels like a lot of material right now, but you'll be surprised that by the middle of the first week, this will seem much more routine, and I think it'll come pretty comfortably for you. So I look forward to working with you over the next 4 weeks. Have a good 4th of July weekend, and I'll see you soon. Take care.